Daniel Hart sat on the wooden bench outside the cabin, watching the sun drop behind the mountain peaks. He had done this same thing every evening for 20 years, though he did not know it had been that long. Time moved differently in the mountains. Seasons came and went. His hands grew stronger. His body became taller, but the rhythm of life stayed the same. The cabin stood alone on the mountainside, far from any road or town. His father had built it stone by stone, board by board, when Daniel was just a baby. His mother had planted a garden behind the cabin that produced vegetables through the short summers. His father had trapped animals and fished in the stream below. They needed nothing from the world beyond these mountains. Daniel's mother had died 3 winters ago. She grew ill during the cold months, coughing through the long nights. His father sat with her, trying everything he knew, but nothing worked. When spring came, she was gone. Daniel remembered the weight of the shovel in his hands as he dug the grave near the garden. He remembered his father's silence afterward, a silence that had never fully broken. After that, it was only Daniel and his father in the cabin. They worked together to gather food, cut wood, and repair the small home. Daniel's father taught him how to track animals and read the weather in the clouds. They did not talk much. They did not need to. Daniel was 20 years old now. He had never seen another person besides his father. He had never been to a town. He had never heard another human voice besides the low, rough words of his father. His father said the world beyond the mountains was a dangerous place where people lied and hurt each other for money and power. The government wanted to control people's minds. Cities were full of poison and noise. It was better to live alone, to be free, to need nothing from anyone else. Daniel believed this completely. He had no reason to doubt it. His father was the only person he knew, and his father was good, strong and quiet and fair. If there was a better way to live, Daniel could not imagine what it would be. The sun had gone down now, leaving only the purple and orange light in the sky. Daniel heard his father moving inside the cabin. The old man was preparing dinner. They would eat together, sitting at the wooden table with no talking. Then they would sleep, and tomorrow would be like every other day. Daniel stood up and walked toward the cabin door. The mountain air was cold on his face. Winter was coming soon. The trees were already losing their leaves, turning red and gold and brown. The stream below would freeze. Snow would cover everything. He pushed open the cabin door and stepped inside. His father was stirring a pot of soup over the fire. The cabin was dark except for the light of the flames. Shadows moved across the wooden walls. They ate without speaking. The soup was warm and simple, made from vegetables and meat. When they finished, Daniel's father cleared the bowls and went to his bed in the corner. He did not say good night. He never did. Daniel lay on his own bed, listening to the sounds of the mountain night. Wind moved through the trees outside. Small animals in the darkness. An owl called somewhere far away. He was almost asleep when he heard something he had never heard before. It was a sound from outside, different from the wind or the animals. It was a sound of impact, like something had crashed through the trees and hit the ground hard. Daniel sat up in his bed. His father sat up too. They looked at each other in the darkness. The sound came again, and then there was silence. Daniel's father stood and walked to the window. He peered out into the black night but could see nothing. A new sound came then, not loud but urgent. It was a series of clicks and chirps like no bird or animal Daniel had ever heard. It was coming from near the front of the cabin. It sounded like something was in pain. Daniel's father went to the door and opened it slowly. The night was cold and dark outside. Daniel moved quietly to stand beside his father, though every lesson he had learned told him to stay back, to be afraid, to not trust what was happening. There, on the ground near the cabin door, was something that Daniel's mind could not at first understand. It was a living creature, but not like any animal he knew. It was small, perhaps the size of a cat, with a body that curved and bent in strange ways. Its skin was smooth and had a blue light coming from inside it, like the creature was made partly of light. It had too many joints in its limbs. Its head was large and smooth with what looked like eyes, but they were black and deep, and nothing like the eyes of any animal Daniel had ever seen. The creature was moving slowly, trying to drag itself forward. Its sounds came again, those clicks and chirps, but they were weaker now. It had clearly been hurt. One of its limbs bent at an angle that was wrong. Daniel's father did not move. He stood very still, staring at the creature. His hand was tight on the cabin door. The creature looked up at them, its black eyes fixed on their faces. It made a sound that was quieter than before, almost like a question. The blue light in its skin flickered like it was fatting. Daniel's father stepped back and started to close the door. But Daniel did something he had never done before in his life. He moved toward the creature instead of away from it. His father tried to grab his arm, but Daniel was faster. He stepped out into the cold night, barefoot on the ground. The creature flinched, trying to move away, but it could not. It was trapped by its own injury. Daniel did what his mother had taught him to do when he found an injured animal in the forest. He moved slowly. He made no sudden sounds. He reached down carefully and looked at the broken limb. The creature watched him with those black eyes. Its clicks and chirps grew quieter. The blue light in its skin grew dimmer. Daniel picked the creature up gently. It was lighter than he expected. It was warm, almost hot, and smooth like nothing he had ever touched. He turned and carried it into the cabin, past his father, and placed it on the table where they had just eaten dinner. His father stood in the doorway, shocked and angry. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Daniel looked at the creature on the table. Its black eyes were closing slowly. The blue light was fading fast. He knew that if he did not do something, this strange being would die in his cabin. And something inside him, something his father's teachings had not been able to remove completely, told him that this was the wrong thing to let happen. The creature did not die that night. Daniel worked quickly, finding clean cloth and water. He cleaned the wound on the broken limb, moving with care and calm. His father watched from the corner, saying nothing, his face hard and unreadable. By morning, the blue light in the creature's skin had returned. It was brighter and more steady. The creature opened its black eyes and made soft clicking sounds, not pain sounds anymore, something closer to acknowledgement. Daniel's father finally spoke. His voice was rough from disuse. He said they should kill it. It was dangerous. It was not from this world. They did not know what it wanted or what it would do. Daniel said no. The creature was hurt and alone. It had come to their door asking for help. His father had taught him that a person does what is right, even when it is difficult. His father stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned away and walked to his bed. He lay down and did not speak again that day. For 3 days, Daniel fed the creature water and small pieces of meat. He changed the cloth around its broken limb. He sat with it for hours, and the creature watched him with those intelligent black eyes. On the 4th day, the creature made a series of clicks that sounded different from before. It sounded almost like a question, but with pattern and rhythm to it. Daniel listened carefully. He found himself making some of the sounds back, changing the rhythm, trying to match what he heard. The creature made more sounds. Daniel made them back. It was not like any language he had ever tried, but somehow his mind understood it. The clicks and chirps seemed to carry meaning that came straight into his thoughts without needing words. The creature was trying to tell him something, its name. The sounds formed a pattern in Daniel's mind and his lips shaped them back. That was the creature's name, was a female, was far from home. Ship had been caught in a storm and brought down, had been separated from the others. When Daniel understood all of this, something changed between them. Its blue light grew brighter. She made softer clicking sounds, almost like a laugh or a song. Daniel smiled. He did not know he was doing it until his face moved. On the 5th day, its broken limb was strong enough that she could move again. Daniel helped her stand. She moved differently than any animal with that strange, jointed way of bending. But she could walk. She explored the cabin, looking at everything with intense interest. She touched things carefully with one of her limbs, and Daniel understood that she was learning about this place, trying to understand how humans lived. That evening, Daniel's father came to the table where was resting. He sat down slowly. He looked at the creature for a long time without speaking. Then he began to talk. He told them about why he had brought the family to the mountains. He had loved Daniel's mother more than he loved freedom. But the world beyond these mountains had become a place where money mattered more than people, where governments controlled what people thought, where people hurt each other for power and greed. He had wanted Daniel to grow up knowing that life could be simple and good, that you did not need many things to be happy, that people could be honest with each other, that trust was real. He looked at as he spoke, and then he did something Daniel had never seen him do. He reached out his hand toward slowly, just as Daniel had that first night. Reached out one of her limbs and touched his weathered hand. She made soft clicking sounds. Daniel's father's face was calm. He nodded. Over the next weeks grew stronger. Daniel and his father brought her food and water. They showed her how they lived, asked questions through her clicks and chirps, and Daniel translated her meaning to his father. She wanted to know why they lived in a small cabin instead of a large city. She wanted to know why they grew food instead of having machines to do it. She wanted to know why Daniel had never seen another human. Daniel's father explained that humans had many flaws. Humans wanted things they did not need. Humans were sometimes cruel, but humans also had something that was rare in the universe. They cared about others even when it cost them something. They would sacrifice their own safety for someone they loved. They could feel sadness for another being's pain. Made confused clicking sounds. She said through her clicks that her own people had removed these feelings from themselves long ago. Emotions were weak and unreliable, made decisions based on logic and pure reason. They did not suffer through love or sacrifice, but had watched Daniel care for her when she was hurt. He had risked his father's anger to help her. He had given her food that he would have eaten himself. He had done all of this with no promise of reward or advantage. Said she did not understand this behavior, but she wanted to understand it. It was like watching a form of strength she had never known existed. Daniel's father nodded. He said this was the thing that made humans valuable, not machines or weapons or knowledge. The ability to care for others, the willingness to risk everything for someone they loved. Was silent for a long time after this. Her blue light flickered slowly, like she was thinking deeply. Then she made a series of clicks that Daniel understood meant something was wrong. She was receiving a signal. Her ship was looking for her. They would find her location in less than 1 week. Daniel felt something cold in his chest. He did not want to leave. She had become familiar to him in a way nothing else in his life ever had. His father looked at Daniel. He did not speak, but his eyes said everything. What happens now will change everything. Looked at both of them. Through her clicks, Daniel understood that she was afraid. Her people might take her away. They might try to study Daniel and his father. They might not understand why she had stayed here, why she had let a human help her. For the first time in his life, Daniel realized that the world beyond his mountains was becoming real to him. And it was coming here, to his cabin, whether he was ready or not. He held Slim gently. He made soft sounds back to her, sounds that he hoped meant he would not let her face the unknown alone. The ship came on the morning of the 6th day. It was not the large vessel that people were searching with. This was smaller, built for speed and low atmospheric flight. It came down through the clouds without warning, landing on a flat area in the clearing below the cabin with a sound like thunder. Daniel heard it from inside the cabin. His heart moved fast in his chest. This was real. This was happening. He went to the window and watched as a door opened in the side of the ship. 3 figures emerged. 2 were like, with smooth skin and those jointed limbs. But they moved with a different kind of confidence. They were soldiers or police, Daniel sensed. The 3rd figure was larger, walking between them with clear authority. This one was the commander. His skin was darker than more gray than blue. His black eyes were cold and calculating. He looked at the cabin below with something that looked like disgust. The three figures began to walk up the mountain path toward the cabin. Made sharp clicking sounds. Through the sounds, Daniel understood her fear. Her commanders had come. They would not be pleased with her. The commander was named Vex. He was important in the military. He would not understand why she had stayed with primitives. Daniel's father stood very still. He had moved toward the door, and now he positioned himself between and where the visitors would enter. The knock came hard and loud, not a knock of courtesy but of authority, a knock that expected the door to open. Daniel's father pulled the door open. He stood in the frame, broad and solid, blocking the view inside. Commander Vex stared at him with those cold black eyes. He made sounds that were harsh and cutting, nothing like soft clicks. His two soldiers took defensive positions beside him. Through the door, Daniel heard Vex speak in a language that was not. He had studied human languages before coming to this world. His voice was hard. He said, "Step aside, primitive. You are in the presence of the collective. You will comply with all commands." Daniel's father did not move. He did not speak. He just stood there, his presence large and immovable. Made urgent clicking sounds from inside the cabin. She pulled herself forward, her healed limbs strong enough now to support her weight. She moved to the doorway, and Daniel's father stepped back to let her through. When Vex saw, his expression changed to anger. He made a series of sharp commands. Through fearful clicks, Daniel understood that Vex was saying she had been contaminated by primitive contact. Her observations were now unreliable. She would be brought to a research facility for reorientation. Clicks became stronger. She was arguing. She was telling Vex about what she had learned. She was telling him that humans were not primitives. They had something valuable, something had lost. They had the capacity for care and sacrifice. Vex made a harsh sound that was like a laugh. He said that emotions were weaknesses. Humans were violent and irrational. Their classification as primitives was correct, had been compromised and needed to be corrected. One of the soldiers stepped forward and reached toward with one of his limbs, trying to take her. Daniel felt something move inside him. It was rage and protection all mixed together. He did not think about what he was doing. He moved forward without thinking. He pushed past his father and grabbed a metal tool from the corner of the cabin. It was something his father used for cutting wood. It was not a weapon, but it was heavy and solid. He held it up. He made his voice loud and strong, something it had never been before. He said no. One word, but it carried the weight of everything he was. Commander Vex stopped. His soldiers stopped. They stared at Daniel as if he was something they had never seen before. Vex made clicking sounds to his soldiers. Through his translation, Daniel understood that Vex was amused by the primitive's show of resistance. It was futile and pathetic. The primitive was no threat. But even as Vex said this, Daniel saw something change in his expression. A moment of recognition. A moment where the commander saw something in Daniel that he had not expected to see. Daniel held the tool steady. His hands did not shake. He looked directly into Vex's black eyes. He said, "Stays, that is the choice." His father came and stood beside him, not with a weapon, but with his presence. His body blocking the path to. Made soft clicking sounds. She was trying to speak, but fear and hope were mixing together in her sounds. Vex studied them both for a long moment. Then he made a series of slow clicking sounds. They were thoughtful sounds, not angry. He was considering something. He said, "The primitive defends the lesser being. This is not rational." Daniel did not lower the tool. He said, "This is what we do. We protect those we care for, even when it costs us something." For several breaths, nothing moved. The two soldiers waited for Vex's command. Vex's black eyes moved from Daniel to his father to and back again. Then Vex did something surprising. He made a series of clicking commands to his soldiers. They stepped back. They lowered their defensive positions. Vex said, "You would risk your death for this being. This is unexpected." He turned away from them and walked back down the mountain toward the ship. His soldiers followed. But he turned once more, just before he reached the vessel. He said "You have chosen to understand primitives. Perhaps this is information the collective should know. You will remain here and continue your observations. You will record everything you learn. In 1 month, I will return for your complete report." Then the soldiers took him inside the ship. The door closed. The ship rose slowly into the air, its lights cutting through the dark clouds. Within moments, it was gone. Daniel let the tool fall from his hands. It crashed to the ground with a sound that seemed very loud in the sudden quiet. He realized he was breathing very fast. His father put a hand on his shoulder. Made soft clicking sounds. She moved to Daniel and touched his arm gently with one of her limbs. The blue light in her skin was bright now, burning strong and clear. Through her clicks, she said something Daniel would never forget. She said, "I begin to understand. Your kind is not weak. You are strong in ways I did not know strength could exist." And Daniel, standing in the doorway of the cabin with his father beside him, and the alien he had decided to protect in front of him, understood that his isolated life was truly over. Everything was going to change. The month that followed was strange and urgent. Spent every day telling Daniel and his father about the collective. She spoke about the vast network of worlds and species that existed beyond Earth. She described advanced technology that could move between stars. She talked about civilizations that had existed for millions of years while humans were still learning to farm. But most importantly, she recorded everything she observed about Daniel and his father. She wrote detailed accounts of how Daniel had cared for her wounds. She documented the way his father defended him, even though Daniel was now making choices his father might not have chosen. She described in precise detail the moment Daniel had faced Commander Vex without fear, willing to die rather than abandon her. She explained to her people that this was not primitive behavior. This was behavior born from something had forgotten they could feel. This was what love looked like. This was what loyalty meant. This was sacrifice. As the month went on, changed. The blue light in her skin began to shift, sometimes becoming brighter when she was with Daniel and his father, sometimes dimming when she thought about being taken back to her people. She began to make sounds that were not part of language, sounds that might have been something like laughter or sadness. Daniel asked her about this one day. He made clicking sounds trying to understand. His response took a long time. Her blue light flickered. She said that spending time with humans had created something inside her that should not be possible. She was experiencing something her people called an emotion. She was experiencing caring for Daniel and his father. She was not sure she wanted to stop. This frightened her. Everything we're taught said that emotions were errors in thinking. Emotions were weaknesses that should be removed, but did not want to be corrected. She did not want to lose what she was feeling. On the last day of the month, the smaller ship returned. It landed in the same place as before. Commander Vex descended alone this time. He walked up the mountain to the cabin slowly, as if he was thinking hard about something. When Daniel's father opened the door, Vex did not demand entry. He asked permission, using words rather than commands. He said, "I have reviewed observations and records. They are unlike any report I have read in 20 years of military service. I wish to speak with all three of you about what she has documented." They sat at the wooden table. Vex took careful notice of how simple it was, how it was made from natural materials with no technology built into it. He observed how Daniel and his father had arranged the food and water for him, showing him courtesy despite their fear. Vex said, Your species was classified as primitive because of your technological limitations. You have no ability to leave your planet. You have no advanced weapons. Your knowledge of universal science is non-existent. By all measures, you are below the threshold for full recognition in the collective. Daniel's father said, and yet you are here talking to us instead of taking away. Vex made a clicking sound that might have been acknowledgement. He said, yes, because records show something that our classifications did not measure. They show a capacity for abstract care that we have engineered away in ourselves. You care for beings with no promise of advantage to yourselves. You protect those weaker than you. You risk your own survival for the survival of others. He paused. His black eyes moved slowly across the cabin, seeing everything. He continued, the collective was not always this way. Millions of years ago, our ancestors had emotions. They had families. They had loyalty and friendship and love. We removed these things because they made decision-making difficult. We became pure logic. We became efficient, but we also became empty. Made soft clicking sounds. She reached out and touched Vex's arm. The commander did not pull away. Vex said, "This experience with you has created an anomaly in her neural patterns. She should be brought in for reorientation and correction. This is standard protocol." Daniel felt his chest tighten. His father's hand clenched on the table. But Vex continued, "However, I will not follow that protocol. Instead, I will report to the Galactic Council that human civilization, while technologically primitive, demonstrates psychological and emotional capabilities that are extremely rare in the known universe. I will recommend that humanity be reclassified for diplomatic relations instead of continued study as a primitive species." He looked directly at Daniel. "Your willingness to fight for those you care about, knowing you would lose, is something I had thought was extinct. It means something. I do not fully understand what, but it means something." He turned to, "You may remain here if you choose. You may continue studying humans and send regular reports to the collective, but understand that this choice may change you permanently. You may never fully return to standard thinking." Made a sound that was unmistakably joy. Her blue light blazed bright. She said yes, she would stay. Over the next days, Vex remained in the cabin. He asked many questions. He wanted to understand how Daniel and his father thought. He wanted to know why they had chosen isolation. He wanted to know why they had helped. Daniel's father answered each question honestly. He told Vex about his fears for humanity, about governments that lied, about the way people hurt each other for power. But he also talked about the strength he saw in people who could still choose kindness even in a cruel world. Vex listened to all of this. His expression, which had been cold and distant, became something more thoughtful. Before he left, he said something that Daniel would remember forever. He said, "Perhaps your species is not primitive. Perhaps you are something we had forgotten existed. Perhaps in trying to become perfectly logical, we lost the things that made us human, and you have kept those things alive." He looked at one final time. "Protect what you have learned here. The collective will not accept it easily, but change is coming. A change that begins with 3 beings who chose to care for each other despite the risk." When Vex departed in his ship, stood beside Daniel and his father. Her blue light shone steady and strong. She had made her choice. She would stay with the humans who had shown her what her own species had forgotten. The sun was setting over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Daniel understood that his life in isolation was truly ending now, but he also understood that something far more important had begun, something that would reach beyond the mountains and touch the stars themselves. 6 months passed. The collective debated Vex's report. Some agreed with his analysis. Others insisted that humans were still too primitive and too dangerous to recognize. But detailed observations shifted opinion in the collective. Her records of human compassion and sacrifice became the foundation for a new way of thinking about less advanced species. In the end, the collective made an official decision. Formal first contact with humanity would occur. Earth would be invited to send representatives to a galactic council. Humanity's isolated life among the stars would end. News of this decision reached Earth's governments first through hidden transmissions. The United Nations scrambled to coordinate a response. Nations argued about what this meant. Scientists wanted to know everything. Military leaders feared the unknown threat, but the decision had been made. Contact would happen. The first official delegation came to the mountain cabin to meet Daniel Hart. They came in large ships that descended through the clouds like clouds themselves. They came in smaller vessels that landed on cleared ground. They brought scientists and diplomats and security personnel. They carried cameras and recording devices and instruments to measure and analyze. Daniel stood in front of the cabin with his father on one side and on the other. He was no longer afraid. He had already faced the unknown and found something good inside it. The lead diplomat was a woman named. She was older, with gray in her hair and a face that showed she had lived through many difficult things. She approached Daniel carefully, respectfully. She said, I represent the United Nations of Earth and the government of the world, has told us about you. She has told us about your choice to help her. Because of you, humanity's place in the universe has changed forever. Daniel said simply, she was hurt. Helping was the only choice. Smiled. It was a sad smile, full of understanding about something. She said, that is exactly why your species has hope. In a universe where many advanced civilizations have learned to be purely logical, where emotion has been seen as weakness, you have kept alive something precious. You have kept the ability to care for others even when it costs you something. Over the following weeks, more delegations came. The collective sent officials to establish a permanent outpost near the cabin. Earth's government sent scientists and diplomats to begin learning about galactic civilization. News media surrounded the mountain, trying to tell the story to the billions of humans who were watching and listening. Daniel's father gave interviews. He spoke about why he had raised Daniel in isolation. He spoke about his hope that humans could remain good even as they grew more powerful. He spoke about the lessons of compassion that his wife had taught him, lessons she had wanted to pass on to their son. Wrote her final comprehensive report. She documented not just Daniel and his father, but the larger truths she had come to understand. She wrote that humans had a capacity for selflessness that could change civilization itself. She wrote that they had made a mistake long ago when they removed emotion from themselves. She wrote that humans might teach the galaxy how to feel again. But the moment that changed everything came, when Daniel agreed to leave the cabin for the first time in his life. He walked down the mountain path, his father beside him. Moved with them, her blue light steady and bright. Around them were diplomats and scientists and security personnel. But as they walked, the focus narrowed to just the three of them. They reached the valley below. Hundreds of people had gathered. Humans from many nations and cultures, with their smooth skin and black eyes. Other species that had come to witness the moment when a young man raised in isolation would meet the larger universe for the first time. Daniel stood at the center of this gathering. People expected him to be overwhelmed or frightened. Instead, he was calm. He had already learned the most important lesson the universe had to teach him. He had learned that beings that seemed strange and foreign could become precious to him if he opened his heart to them. He was introduced to the other species. He shook the limbs of diplomats. He greeted merchants from the Andromeda station. He spoke to scientists from a dozen different worlds. Each conversation taught him something about the universe beyond the mountains. But the most important moment came when he stood before the Galactic Council, which had gathered in a specially prepared chamber to receive humanity's first official representative. They asked him what humanity wanted from the collective. What did humans seek? What would humanity offer? Daniel thought carefully before he answered. He said that humans wanted to learn and grow. They wanted to contribute to the larger community of intelligent life. But more than anything, humans wanted to share something that had been preserved in their culture for thousands of years. They wanted to share the idea that beings should care for each other, that the strong should protect the weak. That sacrifice for others was noble and good. He said, "We come to you imperfect and new. We have many flaws. We fight among ourselves. We have done terrible things. But we also have this. We understand that life matters. Each individual life matters. And we are willing to change ourselves to make that belief real." The council chamber was silent. Then Vex stepped forward. He had become an advocate for humanity. He said, "This is what I found in a mountain cabin on a primitive world. This is what will change our collective for generations to come." In the following years, everything moved quickly. Earth joined the Galactic Collective. Humans traveled to the stars. Scientists worked with human philosophers to understand emotion and compassion. New colonies were established where humans and other species lived together. But Daniel stayed close to the cabin in the mountains. He created a memorial for his mother in the garden where she had planted vegetables. He documented the history of his family's isolation for the collective's archives. He worked to create educational materials about human culture and values. And every evening, he would sit on the same wooden bench outside the cabin where he had sat for all those years of isolation. But now he was not alone. His father sat beside him, sat with them, her blue light mixing with the sunset colors. And sometimes visitors would come, beings from distant worlds who wanted to understand the young man who had changed everything. One evening, as they all sat watching the sun disappear behind the mountain peaks, made soft clicking sounds. Daniel understood without translation. She was expressing contentment, peace, the feeling of being exactly where she belonged. Daniel reached out and took her limb in his hand. His father placed his large hand on Daniel's shoulder. And in that moment, three beings from three different worlds sat together in simple friendship. The young man raised in isolation had learned that the greatest discovery in the universe was not advanced technology or ancient knowledge. It was the discovery that caring for another being, regardless of where they came from or what they looked like, was the most powerful force in existence. The mountains held the cabin as they always had. The stream flowed below as it always would, and the three friends watched the stars come out, understanding at last that they too had become part of the great story of the universe, a story that had been waiting for something precious to be added to it, a story that needed the light of human compassion to shine its. And from that mountain cabin, light spread outward, touching worlds and civilizations, teaching everyone who learned about it a simple but profound truth, that in a universe of infinite complexity, the simplest act of kindness between two beings was the rarest and most valuable thing of all.